We're so done with new year, new you. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
Sonoro.
On this episode, we talked to our friend and therapist, Daniela Sarmina, and asked her to share with us some helpful resources and tips on how we can cope with the chaos that's been all around us since the election. Daniela, or Dani as we like to call her, is a licensed therapist, creative, and student of life. Born in Mexico City and raised in the San Joaquin Valley, she draws from her lived experience to help others uncover and honor their own strength and wisdom. A self-proclaimed goofball with a BA in theater, she incorporates elements of joy, play, compassion, and science to help others manage life's stressors and achieve their goals. Dani tells us all about her journey into becoming a therapist and gives us practical tips that we can use to practice self-care during these very challenging times. Plus, on this Tamarindo podcast exclusive, she launches the Wellness Playground, where she'll be sharing her expertise through her private practice. Follow her at wellness_playground. Welcome to
Tamarindo Podcast.
Hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delsy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos!
Let's start the show.
Welcome, Dani. It's
Thank
so
you.
wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for lending your time, your expertise. So first thing, I want listeners to get to know a little bit about you. But before we do that, I just want to say I'm so excited that we're talking.
Yes.
Because the last time we were talking in person was actually election night.
It was. Yeah. I don't even remember what we did afterwards because honestly, I feel like it just
It was such a shock.
Yeah.
It was such a shock. We ate delicious pizza, having beer, coming into it with high hopes.
we did.
But realistic, right? We were a little bit like, okay, bracing in.
Still very hopeful.
Hopeful. And we were surrounded by a lot of people that were also very hopeful. This was like a special event in Boyle Heights. A lot of people that were optimistic, but very early on, we learned it was not going to go our way.
Yeah.
At least not for federal elections. And so that was a real damper. And it's been a damper ever since. You know,
Yes, I will agree. I still feel some days like I'm in shock and kind of questioning reality, but here we are.
Yes. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because, well, first of all, we experienced that together. And I know that this has been like a challenging time for all of us, right? All of us that are facing this reality. And you are a therapist. And so you've been really awesome sharing a lot of great resources and tips and all of this through your social media. And I just want more people to hear about that. But before we get into that, I'd love to learn about your journey into becoming a therapist.
Sure. So, I feel like it was a pretty long journey. But I definitely had a lot of beliefs, even in childhood, about like what therapy was and whether I needed it or not. I think that I kind of was in, like a lot of, I guess, Latino community, right? I was pretty adverse to the idea of it. I was sort of just like, people are fallible, and how could someone else come in and help me, fix like my problems? I'm sure they have their own problems to like deal with, right? So I kind of have like a little bit of a negative view about what therapy was and sort of like a misunderstanding about really what it is. So I remember having like very clearly like very interesting beliefs about what it was from very young. And then as I grew up, I had a lot of challenges, I would say, as a lot of folks do. And then I got into college. I did theater stuff. And I started, doing a lot of movement in theater, because we had movement, we had voice, we had like a lot of opportunities to sort of connect with ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just on like an academic level. And I started to notice that it would bring up a lot of things for me, like a lot of things that they would kind of just pop up, and I never really got to sort them out because it was like, it's theater, you know, it's not like we had a session afterwards where
Somebody
we were like,
could process those feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, but I did start to notice sort of like that, the disconnect and the connect, right? And then, you know, I finished theater school, life went on. And then when I was in my 30s, actually probably like 29 going on to 30, I started, a lot of those things started coming up again, but just more in like my everyday life. And then I remember specifically, I went on a trip with my family to Mexico City. And I was surrounded, you know, by like family there, my mom, my sibling. And when I got back, I fell into like a really weird depression. Like it was like very odd. I was back in my apartment. I had been living by myself. And so it hit me pretty hard, and I started getting really anxious, very anxious. And I ended up talking to my supervisor about it because she was a social worker, and it was sort of starting to affect like my work.
Yeah.
I was having trouble focusing and stuff. And so I just kind of just laid it all out there for her. And she was so warm and kind in the way that she like handled it. She was like, you know, I've dealt with anxiety all my life. These are the things that you have access to, you know, especially as a supervisor. She's like, we have insurance. Like, here's what you could do. Right.
Yeah.
So I linked up with a therapist. My first session was wild. I literally was like, this is the first time I've ever had space to like talk about things. And I just like word vomit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which felt nice because there were some things that I just felt I had never had the opportunity to voice. And then, yeah, that's kind of just how it started. So my journey started from my personal, right? Like personal story.
Experiencing like the benefits of seeing a therapist.
100%. And so I stayed with that therapist for quite some time. You know, we would talk about anything from personal to professional. And I continued seeing her, I think, until... Was it right about the time that I decided? Yeah, she was part of my decision too. I think at some point I was like, Laura, this is what I want to do, you know, because I found it so effective, and it just completely changed like what my understanding of everything was. So I still sort of hesitated for like a little bit because of cost and grad school. And I was in my 30s, and I was like, how am I going to go back to school? Like, I'm way much older. And then I was sitting at a coffee shop with my sibling. We were sort of just co-working, and I stumbled across an article that talked specifically about the connection between the mind and the body, and essentially like working with the body to like for healing purposes, right? Like building that connection back, because often when you're traumatized or when you've gone through challenges, like that disconnect kind of, there's a rupture
between your body and your spirit and your mind.
Your body, your mind, your spirit, you know, whatever it is that you, what word or language you have for it. Yeah, there's just a disconnect. There's a break. And it really resonated because I was like, wait, those movement classes where I was like just moving and just, you know, whatever, I felt that. Like I felt like my body trying and my mind trying to like get back together, you know? And so I think that was like the final boss, if you will, because I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to put all of these different things together and just offer what I've experienced and what I have access to other people to maybe fill in like those gaps.
All right, welcome back. Hi. We took a little break. So, okay, I want to first start off by asking you, what have you been noticing about how people are expressing their feelings during this really uncertain time since the new administration, since the fires, all the turmoil that we've experienced as of late? What are you noticing?
It's interesting because I talk to people all day, every day, essentially, from like all different walks of life, you know, because at my work, like we see all types of different adults, like all ages, except for kids, people over 18.
Yes,
Which to me, I'm like, that's sort of a kid, but not, you know, technically. But what I've been noticing both at work and then just in my personal life is that people are just very afraid. They're nervous. I think a lot of folks don't really know what to do. And I think there's so much information out there that sometimes it could be difficult to sort of sort out or even just make a decision about like what you want to do to like move forward or contribute or whatever it might be. Right. I think with some of my folks at work, like some of them, they just see like news things, but like they don't always have like the capacity to be able to move through that to identify like what their needs are.
Yeah.
Or even how to like plan for things. And so what I'm noticing is that people are overwhelmed and they're needing other people who are not as overwhelmed to kind of help guide them through some of those steps.
Yeah. And okay, so you're one of these people that's going to help guide me through some of these steps. and our listeners, I'd love for you to walk us through some of the tips that you might have for all of us that are feeling a little distraught, that might feel almost paralyzed by the news, or I mean, another element of feelings that were happening, especially after the fires, is a little bit of survivor's guilt.
Oh yeah,
or feeling guilty because maybe somebody is a citizen and not undocumented, doesn't have that burden. There's all kinds of feelings that we're experiencing right now. So what are some of your tips for how we can cope with all this?
Yeah. I mean, I think also to sort of add to the former question and then also related to this question, what I'm also seeing is a lot of grief. I think especially with the fires and with all of this really, right? We're sort of like, people are grieving this idea of like the safety that they felt, you know, in their home or, you know, in this country or on the planet. Right. And so I think having an understanding of like how that presents for people, and sort of not normalizing to the point of where you're like, oh, this is normal and I should just accept it. But like recognizing that it's a shared collective experience and that you're not alone in the way that you feel. Because I think a lot of people, when they're in crisis, tend to sort of isolate. And I think right now is sort of the worst time to be doing that. Right now, there's strength in community. There's strength in like, you know, staying connected to people. So as far as tips.
Yes,
the tips. So I did come up with 4 tips that I would like to share. I think first and foremost, get curious, right? Get curious about how you are experiencing everything that is happening right now. And really try to get in touch and bring some awareness to how that's affecting you. Not just on a mental level, but on a physical level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level. You know, get to know it. Because unless you're aware of all those things, it's really hard to sort of take yourself out of it and get to a place where you can take intentional action, right? So right now, our nervous systems are extremely overwhelmed.
Yes.
Extremely. And that usually activates your fight, flight, or freeze response, which I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with. And so sort of getting an awareness of what it feels like for you when you are in one of those states, right? So for me, for example, when I'm in fight or flight, which is like a hyper arousal, sometimes I will like actually shake, right? Like I get scared, you know? Sometimes I have like heart flutters or like heart palpitations.
So it's like a real physical manifestation.
100%. On like the mental front, sometimes I have like the thought racing or like rumination. I can't stop thinking about like worrying thoughts and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you sort of cue in to like, how is this presenting for me or how does it present, so that you're able to recognize it when you're in it and then do something about it. On the opposite spectrum, when people are in freeze response, they tend to be overwhelmed, fatigued, difficulty like with motivation, just sort of like decision paralysis.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question to you, do you recognize any of these things? Is there anything that comes up for you?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think I've mentioned the word paralyzed because it almost feels like I don't know what to do, that I'm just almost like doing nothing. I feel lack of motivation. I'm feeling lack of focus. I'm disinterested in things that I used to be interested in. I mean, I do my regular routine things like going out to work out, but many times there's been occasion to go out, and I'm just like not in the mood to be. I'm not in a good mood.
Yeah.
I'm not in a mood at all. The mood that I'm in is not good. Yeah. So that's what I'm noticing for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to, again, cue into those things because if it is things that you like enjoyed, that brought you joy, before this, maybe that's not what you have the capacity to do right now. Maybe you're not like, I want to go out and like party. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are feeling like, hey, like, I realize I'm not feeling like doing that, but I feel like I need to be doing something, then at least you have like the ability to like decide what it is that you want to do. Like maybe you don't have a capacity for that, but maybe you need something else.
So asking yourself like, okay, what do I have capacity for?
100%. 100%. So sort of building that awareness is really important. Being clear of like, when you're getting to those hyper and hypo arousal states and being able to kind of like, okay, I can snap out of it. Or, I mean, also you can honor how you're feeling, right?
Yeah.
You can honor how you're feeling and create space for it. The thing about that is that when you are in like too much of either one of those, it can be difficult to process some of the emotions.
I see. Okay.
Right? So you kind of want to level yourself out a little bit to be able to like intervene, if you will. So again, get curious, build awareness of how you're existing and how it's affecting everything. I would say the second point would be find ways to objectively check in. Okay.
So
So whether that be with somebody else or what I like to really impart on my clients and what I also use myself, it sounds like maybe a little foreign to people, but it's using a scale.
Okay.
Have you used a scale before
for emotions or how I'm feeling? Yes, I have. Actually, shout out to Anna Shayla, who is a former co-host of this podcast, but she co-founded a workplace wellness company.
Okay,
and they used a like a daily checking in, like doing this. Does it make you feel better? Worse. That was my introduction to scales.
Okay. Yes. So very similarly, right? It's a tool.
Okay.
A tool that you can use to sort of check in. It forces you to kind of switch on like that rational part of your brain and sort of step away from like the emotion and be like, okay, like I can name the emotion, but like where am I feeling it? How intense is it? What do I need to move through it? Type of situation. So for example, do you get anxious? Do you feel
yes.
like, okay.
Yes. I know the answer to that one. That's a yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned already like some of the ways that you feel when you're anxious. You feel frozen. You feel sort of like, stuck. Okay. So you're able to recognize like when you're in that anxious place. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being like low anxiety and 10 being like your max anxiety, where would you say that you are on the regular?
On the regular, since the election, let's see. If it was a 1 to 10, I'm probably feeling like a 6.
Like a 6.
Definitely more than normal.
More than normal.
Yes.
Okay. So 5 would be sort of like your normal for you type of thing?
Probably, yes. Because I think I'm just an anxious person as it is.
Too.
So yeah. So let's just say it's like, oh, okay, concerning.
Okay.
Yeah,
so a 6. Okay. So what do you think that you would be able to do if you're at a 6, right? What do you think you might be able to do to sort of bring it down to like a 5?
Well, the way that I actually just asked my group of friends to give me some recommendations of audiobooks, because what I find really a way to escape and just kind of get my mood settled is going on a very long walk and listening to an audiobook or a podcast.
That.
But like
I feel like
that's how and there has to be movement. So I have to be walking.
Okay.
Or sometimes even cleaning. I don't even necessarily like to clean, but if I'm moving and listening to an audiobook or a podcast, that's how I level down.
Yeah. And I feel like when you said it just now, I almost felt like a wash of like,
yes,
you know,
I'm like, I can't wait to get into those audiobooks that right now, because I know the feeling afterwards is like, okay.
Yes. And for you, it's something that's very concrete. Like, you know, like even when you said it, like I said, I felt it sort of like, I imagined you walking, listening to audiobooks. And, okay. So again, it's useful, right? In being able to identify like how you feel and then being able to shift from one stage to the other, right? Into something that's more of like an action that's intentional, that's purposeful. And that makes you feel like more empowered, right? Like, yes, I'm at a 6, but I know that I have a couple tools that I can like bring myself down with. Right?
Yes.
So definitely, I think the scaling can be very helpful. You could use it to read, you know, if you're feeling depressed, which a lot of people are right now, like, let's just be real, right? You can use it to like measure how depressed you are. How depressed am I? Energy level is something that I work with a lot of folks on, right? Because when you are anxious or depressed, sometimes you just don't have that much energy.
Yeah.
And so that one's an important one because you are able to sort of identify what do you have capacity for today, right? And what can you do to sort of raise your energy if you want to, right? Or if you feel like you are wanting that.
Yeah.
So scaling, you can also measure distress. How distressed am I? I actually did that a lot when I was doing trauma-focused therapy. It's called EMDR. I still have a therapist. I go, if not every week, at least every other week.
Yeah.
And it's something that she and I used a lot because when you're kind of delving into trauma, you want to really be mindful of like where it's taking you because you don't want to like re-traumatize yourself, right? And so if you get too activated, like she would be like, how distressed are you? And I'd be like, oh, on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'd be like, I think I'm at a 7. And she'd be like, all right, let's do like a grounding exercise to kind of bring you back.
So it's the value of the scales because it really, to pause and be able to ask yourself where you are is really crucial so that you know what the right next step is. Okay.
100%. Yes. 100%. And again, it engages your brain and sort of forces you to like take a step back and be like, okay, cool. Let's look at it. Third point, have a toolbox ready, right? I know that a lot of folks, like when they come into therapy, they think like, I don't have any coping skills. If you've made it this far, you have some coping skills. Okay. And even if maybe some of them aren't the best, like some of you are using something, right? So being able to identify like what are the adaptive, I guess, more positive skills that I'm using, and can I keep them, write them down, put them in your back pocket, wherever, keep them so that you're familiar with them and you can use them to intervene in one of these situations.
And maybe even just knowing how to label them because it sounds like people, like you're saying, people have coping skills that they don't even know are coping skills.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
100%. Yes. So I think getting to know what are the things that work for you. So again, staying curious throughout this whole process. Let's see. Yeah, I said thinking curious and think outside of the box. Because some tools are like very obvious and you wouldn't even like know. Like for some folks, like brushing your teeth, you know, is like, hey, that makes me feel a certain way. Like I woke up or like I'm going to bed or whatever, right? So making sure that you kind of observe as little or as big. It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to get a massage like every time.
See. Okay. Right? So it could be very regular things that we do.
Yes.
And maybe if you stop doing them, that might be a sign like, okay, something's up. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because when people, especially like when folks like get super depressed, some of the time they lose like that ability to just like do like every day. It's called activities of daily living.
Okay.
So you don't feel like getting dressed or you maybe stop showering as often or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to kind of identify like these are the things that make me feel well and I can use them as tools. Let's see. And the last one that I noted was community.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one thing that I've been noticing. I work from home
Mhm.
and I don't really have colleagues. It's very independent. I've been loving it. I
Mhm.
love it. But then this week I really was starting to realize that, maybe this will get me out of my funk, is to work with other people. Like maybe that is something that I actually need to call in, like being in, maybe it's co-working or whatever. I'm starting to realize that community is important. I mean, I've known community is important, but I didn't realize that maybe it's one thing that my brain is telling me, you might need this right now for your 9 to 5. Maybe you need to be
Yeah.
around more people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks are coming onto that experience, especially after COVID, right?
Right.
Because we did get used to kind of like doing that. And it was, there's lots of benefits to it. You're in your home, it feels safe, you know,
Yeah.
like all these things. But I think especially with everything that's been going on, there's so much power in like being able to share space with other people and not feeling alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of folks are feeling sort of powerless sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that whole old saying of like there's strength in numbers, I think there is something to that, you know? And so even just being able to be in space with other people, not even like necessarily talking politics or talking like stress or I'm going to tell you everything, but just having like, I don't know, some fun, a distraction, you
Yeah.
know, something to give your mind a little bit of a rest and your nervous system a little bit of a reset from just like being in it all the time.
Yeah.
So I think for us in LA, I mean, we've seen how community has come together. In the past
Yes, absolutely. Like in response to the fires, it's been obviously what a disaster the fires were. But one of the beautiful things has seen just the community coming together and flexing that muscle when we're going to need it so much. We're going to super need it.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of empowering and inspiring too.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it infused us with some hope to see, you know, people from all walks of life kind of come together to like help each other out, like at a really tough time. So it's kind of funny that it was like a precursor to like all of this other stuff happening.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh my God. So definitely I think community, I think self-care, a lot of people think of it as like individual things, like, right? Like I need to take care of myself, but it's self-care, I think at this point in time and always. And I mean, if you look at sort of just like history, like self-care is communal, you know what I mean? Like it works really well with other people. And I think if we look at sort of like examples of people that have come before us that we can learn from, I mean, if you look like the Black Panther Party, right? They were all about community and like making sure that like people had safe spaces, had food, you know, meals, like that type of a thing. So there's like a lot of power to like coming together.
Yeah, doing things for other people and
Yeah.
helping the community out. Something you mentioned earlier is like maybe getting together for fun and getting together. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
about politics. And I think that this is something that you model really well, the importance of joy and play. So I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about that. Why is that so important for our mental health and overall well-being to incorporate some play?
Sure. I mean, for me, it's pretty much like a non-negotiable, I would say, like at this point in my life. I try to infuse as much of that into my life as possible. And I think, I mean, some of it comes from my background. Like I was a theater kid, you know? So it's like literally I was in plays.
Yeah.
you know? So like pretending and kind of like, and doing that has just been a big passion of mine. As I've, you know, switched into different careers and stuff, I've tried to find ways to kind of connect these things together. And I think my end goal is to kind of, even in a more intentional way, put everything together. But just on the daily, like I try to just keep that vibe going. I think for me, it's just sort of healing, like healing your inner child in a way, you know? And I think with play, it has a way of like bringing you into the present moment, you know, that is really like unique, you know, like playing a card game with someone, you know, like you're playing speed or you're playing whatever, like you're grounded.
Yeah, in that precise moment. You're not thinking about everything else because your brain is occupied in something so fun. Yeah.
Exactly. So like sometimes I'll just take like a random deck of cards and keep it with me just in random places, especially if I'm like going somewhere where I feel like there might be like a little bit of awkwardness or whatever. Like I tend to like bring something because it's also, it can be holding something can be very grounding, right? So play, I just think is something that's accessible to a lot of folks. And it really kind of brings you again into the present moment. And as far as like what it does, like, I think joy is like everything right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's what we have to like hang on to, you know, because like otherwise, like what, you know, I think the bottom line is joy is sort of what's going to keep us moving forward. It's what's going to keep us tied together. I feel like it's really what is going to fill our cups, and we're going to need a lot of refills.
Yeah,
like a lot.
Lots and lots of refills. Unlimited refills on the joy.
Unlimited refills. So any way that you can find to do joy, you know, I sing in my car. I sang for like an hour in my car, just like SZA songs because I love SZA.
Yeah.
And I do dodgeball, you know, like once a week. But any way that you can find to like infuse your life with like a little bit of that, I think is necessary right now.
Awesome. Okay. You gave us so many great, helpful tips, things that we can all access. People might be also, especially because you were so vulnerable, telling us a little bit about your journey to therapy. I'm sure people are that they may not already have therapy or maybe considering it, but for folks where this is inaccessible, you know, I think you already gave us a lot of great tips that don't require therapy. Are there other resources that you like to share that might be helpful for folks?
Definitely. So I think definitely have experienced therapy being inaccessible for people. There's some people that like just it's cost prohibitive. There's some people that, I mean, I recently had a lady that came in and she works part-time. She makes too much to get Medi-Cal, but she makes like just enough too much.
Yeah.
And so she would have to pay out of pocket for services. And it's just like an insane amount.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
she falls like right in that. And it's very frustrating as someone who, you know, who's a provider, you know, so there is sliding scale. There are some places that do sliding scale. They can be difficult to kind of find sometimes, but I think at least in LA, because of the fires and stuff, I know there's been a lot of providers that have been opening their books to offer that. But I think another valuable tool tying back the community aspect to it, there's support groups.
Okay.
And I think some of my like greatest experiences have been with support groups. I used to facilitate a support group for a group of Indigenous women who were interpreters.
Oh, wow.
And as a facilitator, like I mostly just sit and I ask questions here and there, right? But I think what's really special about a support group is that it really honors the wisdom and the knowledge that people bring into the circle, right? And that you're able to like share it. And again, you have the sense of like you don't feel alone.
Yeah.
Right? So I think if you're able to access some sort of support group, that's awesome. I actually had written down the LGBT Center has a really wonderful offering of support groups.
Perfect. We can make sure that's included in our notes.
For sure. They have something called the Trans Lounge, which is for social connection and support group for trans youth, right?
So critical right now.
Absolutely, 100%. So if you see an organization that's out there, that's doing good work, that in your community, right, that speaks to one of your many different intersectionalities, I would say hit them up and be like, hey, do you guys have support groups, or do you guys have, a listing of support groups, people you work with? Because I think people are sometimes hesitant because they're just like, I don't know anybody and I don't want to like talk about like my stuff. But once you get in, like, and you just kind of like give it a try, I've had a lot of people that are just like, this is amazing.
Okay, so going back to joy.
Yes,
I want
joy.
to bring in a little bit of levity
Yes,
into
of
today.
course.
We're going to play a game. So basically, I'm going to tell you about something, and then
Okay.
you tell me whether it's a basura, meaning nah, you're not messing with it,
Okay.
or matraca, like I mess with this.
Do I do the sound?
Yeah, you know what? I was looking for my actual matraca and I couldn't find it, but we've got Karina's going to help us out and put in some sound effects.
Awesome.
Okay, so first thing on this list is the number of high school students all over LA that are protesting this week. Even today, this morning, I saw a group of high school kids walking out. It's been happening all over Los Angeles and a lot of major cities. Is this a basura or matraca?
Come on. That's not even a question.
I know,
That's
it's a matraca. That's the easy one. It's the easy one.
100%.
Super inspiring, and we love to see it. And actually, I've been also really impressed with what they're saying. So I'm just going to tiny snippet of a quote. The whole quote is really great, but this is from a student named Elizabeth Correa, who's only 17. She says, in her quote, she says, "This is a movement, not a moment."
Ooh.
So I love that. The kids are gonna. The kids are all right, okay? The kids are all right.
They help me feel so much hope.
Yes, it's been very hopeful. All right, here's another one.
Okay.
Chilaquiles rojos. Basura or matraca?
I mean, that's got to be a matraca because I've... Oh, wait, no, the chilaquiles. I was thinking something different. Okay. You know what? I'm going to have to say matraca. I prefer green. I prefer verde.
Yes,
like,
me too.
That's my jam.
Me too.
But like, I'm also a fan of like huevos divorciados. Like, I'll take a little bit of everything.
A little bit of both. Okay.
Yeah. So I would say matraca too.
Yes.
Food is matraca.
Matraca pretty much, right? But if you had the choice, it would be verdes.
Yes.
Yes. Me
Except
as
for
well.
mayo. Mayo's
you don't like mayo?
No.
My thing is horseradish. I like everything but horseradish.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if you're a fan of movies.
I am.
Okay, so there's been a lot of movie talk where it's Oscar season. We live in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about your thoughts. Matraca or basura?
Okay.
This might depend on whether you've seen this movie, but Emilia Perez getting 13 Oscar nominations. Basura or matraca? What are your thoughts on this one?
So I haven't seen it.
Okay.
And I have heard mixed reviews.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I guess I would have to say I do appreciate that it is a story, as far as I know. It's a story that is about people of color, I think, right?
Yes.
Yes or no?
I mean, they're supposed to be Mexicans, mostly. So yes, which of course complicated whether they're people of color because we're a little bit of everything.
Right. Exactly. So I would say like I like the fact that it's sort of like a story that seems different, but it would be hard for me to say because I haven't seen it.
Okay. I think that's a perfect answer.
Okay.
I'm going to give, just because I'm playing too for fun, I'm chiming in. Definitely a basura for the number of noms. It just seems like it's not that great. Even with all the controversy, the songs are not that good. I have so many beefs with it, but one of the things that I don't like about it is that the main character, who, first of all, now is deplorable because lots of tweets have resurfaced. Now we know that she's racist and problematic.
I heard this.
But absent of that, I don't think that, I think to be a good person in your craft, if your assignment is to play a Mexican,
sure,
you got to work on that accent. And I could tell that she's Spanish. So I don't think that's worthy of an Oscar nom.
Okay.
So anyways, Emilia Perez will always be controversial because it's such a mixed thing.
It is. And I didn't realize it was 13. That is a lot.
It just seems a little bit like...
It is a lot.
It's also this movie, like nobody asked for it, you know?
Sure.
Like we've been asking for representation. I don't think this is the one we wanted. You know?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't watched it because there wasn't anything about it that I was like drawn to.
Right.
You know, I wasn't
a movie about cartels?
Yeah.
Oh, but it's also a musical?
Yeah. I was like, that's a little confusing to me. And I just, but that's why I haven't watched it. So yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think when you do eventually see it. All right, number 4 here is parking at Trader Joe's. Basura or matraca?
That's going to be basura.
Basura.
Yeah. I don't even park in those parking lots. I would rather park down the street and walk.
Yeah, they're all really bad. I was hopeful. They opened up I like to go to the one in South Pasadena, but it's really small and that parking lot is terrible. So I always generally tend to park in the street, but even that's kind of a nightmare. And then they opened up another one in South Pasadena, which is huge and a huge parking lot. Also a nightmare. So it doesn't really matter.
You know what I think it is? I think it's because someone said like, oh, everyone should go to the new Trader Joe's because they have a bigger parking lot.
Yes.
But then we all went there.
We all went there. Yes, we all went there. If you are listening from a Trader Joe's that has a nice parking lot, let us know how. Let us know the
Please
secret.
let us know.
When's the time to go? What?
I think I've actually looked this up, and I thought that I read something that it was like because like that's how they keep costs down or something.
Really? Like this is strategic? Like let's find the worst parking lot? Perfect. That's where we're putting
Or
this
maybe
Trader
it just, I have no idea. But
it
yeah.
seems by design because they're
all
all
like
terrible.
that.
They're all terrible. I don't know if you've seen this show. Mo, have you seen this show? It's on Netflix.
No, but my friend Elizabeth told me to watch it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Definitely a good one to watch. So for listeners that may not know, I'm surprised that it came back. I already liked it when the first season because it was so unique and different. So it's a Palestinian undocumented immigrant, refugee. And so that in and of itself is like, wow, I'm so glad that this story is being told. But also it's based on his real life. And it takes place in Houston. And he has in the first season, he has a Mexican girlfriend. And I thought her character was like the most accurate representation of a Mexican from Houston, or like just like a Mexican American, more Mexican. I think she's like an immigrant. I love the way they showed that story, and then him even like speaking a little bit of Spanglish. All of that was wonderful, but just even the nuance in this of like the experience of being undocumented.
Oh, I love.
Yeah, it's very good. And now it's back, and it's like more urgent than ever because there's also it's funny because it's also done. It's a comedy, so it's like these really heavy topics, including Israel and Palestine. And, all of these complicated topics, but in a really thoughtful and comedic way.
Oh,
so Mo on Netflix, highly recommend. Matraca Tet. You gotta watch it.
I'm putting it on I mean, it already sounds like a matraca.
Oh yeah,
but
it's very good.
Okay,
this one's a little controversial. Number 6, shopping at Target, basura or matraca. Tough one.
That's a big basura.
I know it's basura, but my heart hurts.
It hurts. I mean, it does. And again, grief, right? Like that's what we're kind of dealing with, like letting go of like the way that, things were. And for some people, it's a really big deal, right? Like I had a friend share recently that their partner had like a very specific Sunday ritual with their daughter, like their very young daughter.
Who was like, oh, we go to Target.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Where the daughter like recognizes the sign and gets really excited. And it was like a very, but they're a queer couple and they're just like, we're not going there anymore. And so they had to like explain to their daughter, like, hey, this is what's, in a way that is understandable to like a small one,
Yeah.
And I think the way that they framed it was like very sweet and very, they were just like, there's not kind people there, And so that resonated in it. And I was like, yeah, I agree with that. And 100% support.
Yes.
So, yes.
Basura to shopping at Target. Sad.
Very sad. Very sad.
Okay.
Very sad for you, Target.
Yes, very sad for you, Target.
Yeah,
all right.
not us.
Not us.
We'll be fine.
You know what? I've never wanted a Costco membership, but now I'm like, is it time?
I think it might be.
It might be time. Yeah. Okay. All right. Number 7 is the last one here.
Okay.
This might be more specific to me, but I don't know if you've seen this too. Okay. So I have a lot of cousins in Mexico, and also just the internet. You end up following a lot of Mexican accounts, whatever. I see this and I don't understand it. Mexicans from Mexico, in Mexico, posting exclusively in English.
Mexicans living in
Yes, just full on Mexicans posting exclusively in English.
Exclusively?
Yes, this is what I've seen. Also, sort of related, going to Mexico City.
Yeah.
And everything being in English.
Oh, that's weird.
It's like I don't even think Americans really want that. They haven't asked for it. I think it's more like a Mexican-driven thing. And that's what bothers me about it. So anyways, what are thoughts? Basura, matraca?
I mean, I would definitely say that's a basura. Like if we haven't... I mean, I kind of understand a little bit because I feel like, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing. It might not be a cultural thing. I feel like we tend to be like very like welcoming and sort of like people pleasing sometimes as a cultura, you know, like we're very like, you know, and so maybe part of it is trying to like welcome and trying to be like, oh, but like, I don't want that.
Yeah, no, I don't want that. All right, basura now. All right, just to wrap it up, I'm going to ask just 3 questions from you. This is your personal basura, matraca, and then an inspiración. So we'll start with the basura because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
So what goes in la basura this week for you?
Okay. My basura for this week is LA Children's Hospital stopping or halting transgender or gender affirming care for youth ages 19 and under. Absolute basura. We trusted you. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like I see folks on the other end of it, right? As adults who are still dealing with like the repercussions of like their gender being invalidated. And it's very traumatic. It's horrifying, you know, like the repercussions of it. And so that was very upsetting to me.
Oof, big time basura.
Big time basura.
What gets your matraca? Something you're celebrating.
Okay, yes. So I think my matraca for this week, something that just brought like a huge smile to my face was Kendrick Lamar at the Grammys dedicating his Record of the Year award to the city of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Because I was just like, you know what? Like, we've had a hard time the last month, you know? And so for him to go up there, not even just say like I dedicate it to the city, but naming the different cities.
Yeah, and even go as far as San Bernardino, like saying as well as
and Pacoima.
Yes.
Pacoima. And then just being like so grateful for like his experience here in the city. I think it really resonated with me because as an immigrant, you know, I've lived in LA longer than I lived in my hometown. I grew up in the Central Valley. So LA for me is like my adopted city. Like this is where my heart is. This is where where I first felt like an acceptance, you know, and like this is home. And so I love this city. And so it brought a huge smile to my face when he said that. So
I love it. And we're recording before the Super Bowl, and we know that the winner is Kendrick Lamar.
Yes.
And then lastly, what is giving you inspiración this week?
This week, I just had a birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. I had a birthday, and I think with age, it's very exciting, but it could also it brings about like a lot of life questions sort of, or can, especially once you get like a little bit older. And so I think this week I was sort of like in a weird sort of space, and I was just like questioning a lot of stuff. And I called on like a bunch of friends, like literally made phone calls and was like, hey. And everyone was so generous with their time, with the space that they held. And so I think it was very motivating. I was super grateful for it. You all know who you are. And and it just motivated me to like, yes, like, and it also reminded me of like, hey, like, these are the connections that you've like put effort into building, and like these relationships are reciprocal. And again, just kind of brought forth like that feeling of like community. Like this is what we need right now. We need our people. Yeah,
to nurture the relationship and call on them. Literally, it's reciprocal.
It's
reciprocal. You can call.
100%. Yes. And we need that right now, you know, because I think together is the only way we're going to be able to get through whatever it is that happens in the next 4 years or 50 years, whatever it is.
Love it. Perfect. Okay, the last question for you is where can people follow you, keep in touch? Is there anything else you want to share with folks?
Yes. So I am on the verge of launching my, my business.
Yeah, she's an entrepreneur.
So I will be launching my private practice. We'll say probably like by June, I should be fully ready to kind of move forward with that. But it's not just going to be private practice. I also am going to do events. I want to host workshops, have resources for people, just, kind of do like a little bit of everything and a little bit of nothing too. like just some rest, you know?
Yes, of course.
So the name of my organization / business is going to be Wellness Playground.
Oh my God. Love it. This is a Tamarindo exclusive.
Yes, it is a Tamarindo exclusive. You heard it here first.
Yes, I love it.
Yes, so it's Wellness Playground. So for this special occasion, I had already reserved the Instagram handle, but I put up a logo today because I was like,
I love it.
So you can find it at wellness_playground on Instagram.
Perfect.
That's for the business. And then if you want to follow me personally, I do have a private account. So I'm sorry if I like it.
Give us the playground is where we're going to find you.
Okay. Yes, that's great. And
yes.
I'll be around too there. So.
Awesome. Yay. Oh my God, that's
so
awesome.
much.
No, so great. And also Tamarindo exclusive.
Yes, very exciting.
Tamarindo Podcast is Brenda Gonzalez and Delsy Sandoval. We are also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song. Sonoro Media's Karina Riveroll provides production support, and Cliva Torres edits our episodes for YouTube. The best way to support our work is to rate and review Tamarindo or share an episode with a friend. Get in touch with us at tamarindopodcast.com.
Sonoro.
I'm not going to lie, you're slacking. You're slacking on starting that business you've been holding off on. It's just living in your head. And if you don't act now, that idea is going to leave, or maybe someone's going to take that idea. And there's a tool that I personally use, and that is Shopify. You don't need to be a web designer. You can just start moving, zooming in, adding the text you need, adding pictures you need. And Shopify has so many templates you can use from. Get it out of your head and onto a website with Shopify. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sell. They make it easy to manage growing your business. They help with details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on all the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/sonoro, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/sonoro to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/sonoro.